Recognizing the member for Langford, Wanda Fuca.
Thanks very much, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon to everyone. It truly is a privilege, any opportunity I get to be able to stand in this House, but particularly to be able to speak to this very important piece of legislation, the Anti-Racism Act. I want to thank my colleague and friend, the Attorney General, and the entire team for all of their work over the course of a number of years to be able to bring forward this historic piece of legislation. Madam Speaker, I haven't spent much time in this House, and I always, when I walk into this building, am really thankful for the opportunity that the people of my community have given me, not only to walk into this House, but to be able to sit in this spot at my desk, but also the ability to be able to represent them each and every day in this House. And that's something I remind myself each and every day, that truly is a privilege to be able to be the MLA for an incredible constituency, an incredibly diverse constituency, and a growing constituency. And it's something that I remind myself that I can't ever take for granted. And as I was thinking about the day in which the attorney introduced this piece of legislation, I remember getting emotional sitting in this House, looking up into the gallery and seeing so many people that I've had the opportunity of knowing for a number of years who've been fighting racism in their various sectors, in their employment, in their communities, in schools, you name it, people that I've known over the course of, it seems like a lifetime. But also so many other people that I hold in the highest of regards, who I look up to as mentors, who have done so much, who have been pioneers in our respective communities in the work that they've been doing to break barriers and to ensure that our communities can be inclusive. And for me, the Anti-Racism Act in particular, as I thought about walking into this House, I thought about the fact that for a number of years previously, there was a time when a person like me, who looked like me, a person of color, couldn't walk into the legislature, couldn't be an MLA. I thought of Mo Sahota, who is the former MLA for much of the area that I now have the opportunity and privilege to represent, and the barriers that he had to face as the first South Asian MLA in Canada, let alone British Columbia. And I often think about the times, even as a staffer here, prior to being an MLA, reminding myself and my colleagues how much of a privilege it is to be able to be in this place, because there was a time when our ancestors and our friends and family couldn't walk into this legislature. We often talk about this being the People's House, and for a time this wasn't the People's House. And I want to talk a bit about the Anti-Racism Act in that relation. As I thought about the Anti-Racism Act, as I saw the people in the gallery, and as the attorney read out during her first reading speech, it really reminded me the power that we all have as legislators. We all come in here during question period and have fierce debates, but the power that we have as individual MLAs to vote. And again, I haven't been here very long, but on that day, a day that I will never forget, I truly understood the value and the role that I have as an MLA, and the power that I have to say aye and push forward on behalf of my constituents my vote in favor of first reading for the Anti-Racism Act. I was chatting with the member for Richmond-Queensborough, Madam Speaker, about racism in relation to me in particular, because I know that much of the legislation and much of the debate and discussion is based off of what British Columbians have shared with the Attorney General, with the Parliamentary Secretary for Anti-Racism efforts, and all legislators, all MLAs over the course of this work. And it's so important that we all reflect on our own personal stories and the stories that we've been shared. I often think about the struggles that my parents and my grandmother in particular faced when they immigrated here, and often when they faced actions of racism, there was a desire just to brush it off and just to fit in. And I often think about the challenges that even I faced, growing up in Langford, a community predominantly Caucasian at the time. It wasn't the diverse community it is today, and being the only, it felt like the only brown boy in elementary school, and how there were selected comments that were made, and it was my intention and my goal back in elementary school and middle school and even much of high school to just fit in, not to celebrate my culture, my beliefs, and my traditions. I often think about the part of the kara that I wear, and how my grandmother gave that to me, and how in elementary school and middle school, out of fear of people seeing it, I would just hide it underneath my clothes. Everyone has a story as it relates to racism, and it's so important that through this work and through subsequent debate and discussion, and after this legislation has passed, that we continue to hear those stories. I had just, Madam Speaker, as we returned to the legislature this week, I spent the last week visiting many post-secondary campuses and talking to, in particular, international students who have faced considerable racism over the course of the last number of years, but in particular right now with what we're seeing from the federal government in terms of them cracking down on immigration and how they're feeling it in their communities. And so a lot of the emotion that I'm feeling today is also the emotion that I'm feeling from the conversations that I had with people in Kelowna. In particular, I want to acknowledge someone who I've gotten the chance to know in my new role as the Parliamentary Secretary for International Credentials, Moini Singh, a councillor from Kelowna, who is just doing incredible work, being such a strong voice and advocate for international students, especially those that have been intimidated and those who have unfortunately been attacked. Madam Speaker, I'm not going to speak for very long, but I want to touch on the importance of the Anti-Racism Act as it relates to the work that the Attorney General has done. Firstly, in order for this legislation to be developed, we really needed to open our doors and our minds and our hearts to British Columbians. And I want to acknowledge so many people who took time out of their busy schedules to be able to ensure that they could participate in this engagement opportunity. I think of the Bangladesh Community Cultural Society in the South Island here, and the work that they did by receiving a grant and holding a number of sessions to be able to collect feedback that led to the introduction of this legislation. And there was, I know the Bangladesh Community Cultural Society is just one of hundreds of societies across British Columbia that received grants and held their own community engagement sessions to be able to ensure that legislators and those who were developing this legislation had the best data possible to be able to ensure that what we were bringing forward was our best intentions. The importance of developing and introducing this anti-racism legislation is so important because it was also developed and co-developed with Indigenous peoples through the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. I think it's important to know, Madam Speaker, that this legislation alone won't end racism. It requires all of us in this House to stand up against hate, to stand up against the extremes in politics, to the Trump-style politics that we're seeing in our communities, and to stand up for people from all walks of life. And I feel in my core that the work that our government is doing by introducing this very important piece of legislation, holding ourselves accountable as a government, holding our bodies, our government bodies accountable, is a really important step in that direction of making sure that we are striving towards ending racism. That is going to be a lifelong journey for this province, for this country, and for this world. I want to acknowledge, as I mentioned earlier, the people that have done incredible work on this legislation. When I think of that day when the attorney introduced first reading, I remember looking up and seeing Suki Sandhu, someone who I hold in very high regard, who has been a champion for anti-racism efforts, I would argue probably for most of his life, certainly in sport. He's been an international leader and someone that governments have called upon to be able to ask for advice. I remember seeing my friend Amir Bajakian, who I first met in this chamber, to talk about the importance of our roles as young people getting involved in politics when we participated in model parliament, but to see his voice reflected in the voice of Iranians that he represented through consultations in this bill was so important, as well as Daljeet Gilbadesha and so many other people. This legislation, again, Madam Speaker, is only possible because of the hard work of so many British Columbians from all walks of life who had the opportunity to be able to participate in the engagement, and is what has led to the introduction of this bill. And I'll just end, Madam Speaker, by saying that it brings me a great pride to be able to stand in second reading and share with you and the members of this House that I proudly support this legislation. The introduction of this bill reminded me once again how important my voice is as an MLA on behalf of my constituents. And I hope that I can remember that day and carry that day for the rest of my life. And I recommit myself to the work that I need to do and all MLAs should do to fight racism in our community. I'm looking forward to the continued debate and discussion during second reading and committee stage, and hopefully coming to a point very soon when this legislation is passed and we can work towards, again, working towards a more safe, inclusive world where everyone can feel who they are. So thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to the Anti-Racism Act.